Welcome back to the Yoga Chat. I'm your host, Montana.
I'm your host, May. Montana, you did a funny little shoulder
A
shake when you
shimmy,
said that.
a shimmy, shimmy.
Welcome back to the Yoga Chat.
Yeah. This is our summer vacation episode number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome. Today we are actually gonna um not do our best, but force ourselves, for lack of a better word, to make this short and sweet because that's what we've been trying to do. That was the intention of having these summer vacations, and May's got classes to teach.
I do.
Um, So we're going to talk today about angel numbers and assholes. No, I'm just kidding. I had to say it though, because I was like, May, let's talk about angel numbers. She's like, and assholes. And I was like, that would actually
Only
be
because it
right on
flows so
par.
good off the tongue.
It does.
Angel numbers and assholes. But which
Yeah.
assholes are we talking about? Actual buttholes or people?
Or rude
You'll
human
never know
beings. Yeah, you
because
don't
we're
know.
not going to go there.
We're
We're
not
going
going
to
to
keep
go
it
there.
positive.
We're going to talk about angel numbers and how long is too short or too long. How short or how long should, I hate that word, but could a yoga teacher um like teach one sequence for? How long to teach a
Yeah.
similar or the same class?
And feel free when we drop this on the old Instagram to message us and let us know your opinions because
Please.
we are both playing with the idea of instead of changing up the flow every week, which we both did for a really long time, to changing it to every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, depending on how complex the poses or the flow is. And so we just want to hear from you, when do you start to get bored? When or do you enjoy feeling yourself progress through the same flow over the course of like a month? So yeah, we're
As
gonna
a
we're gonna drop that like it's hot.
Yeah, as a teacher and as a student, because I feel like it's very different. Like as a teacher, we're probably going to get a lot, quote unquote, more, we're going to need a lot border, that's a word, quicker. Whereas
Yeah.
students are probably not going to be, you know,
Right, because 'cause they're not only taking our class, like,
no.
especially at
And
Yoga 6, we have, like, 40 classes a week and over 10 teachers at this point, so if someone catches our class maybe once, maybe twice a week, that's it. They're gonna be taking tons of other formats with tons of other teachers, so it's not gonna feel the same to them, but it feels the same to us if we teach it because 'cause we're the only ones, that feel it as
yeah,
many times as we teach it.
yeah.
Um,
All right, cool.
but
Let's table that and talk about angel numbers first. So, May, you said you had some cool angel number stories.
Well, let me start by saying that before I met Montana, I didn't know what the fuck angel numbers were. And I know that like the number 1111 would come up in middle school and we'd all be like, "Oh my god, it's 1111, make a wish. Oh my god, is your crush here?" blah blah. Blah." But like so I just thought that was like a dumb like high school kid thing, but apparently angel numbers is like a whole thing that people believe are like signs and synchronicities from the universe to like to send you certain messages at certain times or whatever. And
Listen to this bitch. I
well,
love
I mean,
you.
I've been paying attention,
I
you
know, I know.
woo-woo person. My favorite one was when Montana and I were walking out of facilitating the 200-hour one weekend, and we were talking about whether or not I wanted to take the 300-hour training and just like with if it was the right time or the wrong time. And we like were walking and just aimlessly walking in the parking lot and just literally walked up to a car not paying any attention and the car's license plate was like 99999 and I was like, "Oh, what do nines mean?" And she literally pulled out her angel number
I
book
just so
on the
happen to
spot and
have
was
my
like,
book.
"It means leveling up. You can't make this shit up." And so like in a way it was kind of like the universe was telling me I should take the 300 hour. And now when I think about it, it's interesting because it's like, are the numbers telling you what to do? Or are you seeing the numbers and then it's making you think about things a little bit more? And so it's kind of like a back and forth chicken or egg thing where like, are
Mhm.
the numbers giving you and reinforcing the idea? Are they real or are they just like real to you? So you're making your choices based on like, you know, what you're seeing or thinking you're seeing, but it could go so many different ways. But the other day, I forget what was going on, but I had just gotten off the phone with somebody about like a real estate closing that was going really well and then something awesome happened in terms of like the yoga studio and then I drove home and literally on the way home saw like all of the numbers, like on all of the license plate, zoomed like 222 zoomed by, 333 zoomed by. I'm sitting behind a red light at 444. I pull into my neighborhood and some big work van is out with 55555. And literally, like, I saw all of them driving home and I started giggling. I was like, because I probably wouldn't have even noticed this 2 years ago. And maybe it means nothing at all if I want to be my cynical, meaningless, agnostic, whatever kind of self. But I was also like, maybe it does mean something. Maybe it means everything.
Yeah.
So I'm always torn between that. Like, is this a sign or am I full of shit? Or am I convincing myself of things that aren't real? But yeah.
I was just not in preparation, just in just because this is how shit works. I was just listening, which I haven't listened to Mystic Michaela's Know Your Aura podcast in a while. And I actually was listening to a different podcast and it ended. And then this one just started. So I didn't even choose to put it on. It was literally just playing in the car um, 15 minutes ago. And she was talking about not necessarily angel numbers, but for what it's worth, Mystic Michaela's angel number book is there's so many different interpretations of like what numbers mean and the like the signs that they hold when you see them. And so like just to keep it consistent for myself, I tend to lean toward her interpretation of it just so that I have like a one place to look other than like Google. Um,
Mhm.
and the podcast that came on wasn't even about angel numbers, but it was about like spirit and the other side essentially trying to communicate with you. And she was saying that like the first step, like the first instinct, the first like inkling that you notice something is spirit. And then whenever you like start to convince your like which we all do because we're human, when you try to convince yourself that like it's you're making it up or
Mhm.
it's nonsense or whatever, then that's truly just like your ego, is how she was explaining it. Your ego getting in the way of like someone or something on the other side trying to communicate with you. I remember Hannah Schlegel told me a story. Oh, like this was years ago. And she was, for whatever reason asking, she's like, all right, for an answer to a question that I genuinely can't remember what it was. She was like, show me a blue butterfly. And then she like literally, I want to say she was in a parking lot and there was a blue butterfly sticker on the back of someone's car. And she was like, I don't know, it's just wait,
That doesn't count.
yeah, that doesn't count. And then she like walked in. For some reason, I remember the story being Walmart, but I could be making that up. So she walks into the store that in my mind is Walmart. And this little girl was wearing a shirt like covered in blue butterflies. And she was like, why do I try to convince myself otherwise? Like, so then like
Uh-huh.
all the blue butterflies started showing up.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's so for me, it's just like fun. Like
It
it's the
is.
same reason that I love like the zodiac signs and astrology and like any sort of like treasure map is what it feels like. Um,
Whimsical.
yeah, exactly. And I've loved this stuff since I was a little girl. Like I remember, May, do you remember the like teen magazines where it was like people,
Oh,
but like
yes.
people teen? Yeah, they
Like
always
Jonathan
had,
Taylor Thomas on the cover, and
yes.
yes, I know.
Yes.
I had all of them.
And they always had like astrology, like your astrology stuff in there. And
Mhm.
they'd also have like quizzes. So like this is ridiculous. Obviously, this is not how I feel now, but when I was a little girl, like the astrology stuff was equivalent to like taking a quiz on which Jonas brother was most compatible with me. It's just fun. Like they're just like little silly
I
fun
hope it
things
wasn't
that like have.
Joe. Just shout out to Maddie. She would have to fight you for him.
No, it was Joe definitely, but Nick was always my favorite. So
Mm.
I remember being upset about that. I was like, no, 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 I need to like, and you can tell like A, B, or C, like all the A's are Joe, all the B's are
Mhm.
Nick, all the C's are Kevin. So then I was like, all B's, duh. Um, but anyways, this like funny little like, and it's still fun and funny and whatever, but it's also turned into something more for me just because it gives me like hope. It just is like this optimistic reminder that like everything that we're dealing with here is for reason, it's for purpose, it's an opportunity for growth or for joy or for whatever it's for, but like it's also I believe that this is just like a blimp of a moment in what our like true essence or energy is has already experienced or will experience far beyond this lifetime. A fun one that just came to my mind on my birthday last year, I pulled from my moon deck. And I pulled one card and I kept going back and forth like, oh, should I pull a card this morning? I was still in bed. I'm like, yeah, I guess I will. It's my birthday. Should I pull one or three or whatever? And I was like, oh, I'll just pull one. And I like wasn't that excited about it. And I pulled number 29. And I actually have the deck right here. So I'm going to read what 29 says.
Please do.
I can't remember if I mentioned this. It was my 29th birthday last year. So 29 says, um, nourish. Um, conscious eating nourishes me. I'm 29, right? Wait, this is a lie. I pulled it on 28. So this was two birthdays ago. It's like, it wasn't about food. So it was two birthdays ago, which is, I can't believe I just thought of it. Mystery. I trust the mystery of life. The unknown can sometimes be unsettling. Even when we prep and plan, the future is always unpredictable. When we realize that the mystery is the magic of life, filled with fertile possibility, we can approach it with trust rather than fear. Raven has arrived to remind you to trust the mystery, the unknown realm, and the deep inquiry. She is a bird of mysticism and magic, birth and death, shadow and light, and the messenger between them all. Let go and surrender so that your energy can flow more freely and your ability to trust can expand. You don't have to fix, solve, or have all the answers today. The magical mystery and innocent wonder of life is something to celebrate rather than fear. And isn't that just like such a great thing to read on your
Mhm.
birthday? Yeah, not the
It is.
nourish your body with food, which is also important, but that's not
It
what I
is
was.
also important.
Um,
I like the idea of like you know, I think humans in general like seek meaning in things. Like
mhm.
they don't want to think things are like arbitrary or pointless or meaningless. And like so even the people that are skeptics about it, like, you know, deep down, I think everybody to a degree wants to believe that there's signs that are coming to you or deeper meaning in things that cross your path throughout the day. So like as much as and that's what I guess my ego, if that lady was correct, my ego is preventing me from like, really accepting these signs or whatever. I
Yeah.
told you
And
the
when she
story about
says
like
ego, sorry to interrupt, but when she says ego, I
no,
think it's like what we talk about in yoga philosophy, not like your ego that like gives you, like
right. Your
a too
grandiose
big of a
bullshit.
head, but
Yeah.
your ego that is there to like protect you.
Mhm. 100%. Um This was like one day walking down the street, I had a lot going on in my brain, and I was like, "I need to see something beautiful in the sky in order for me to believe that this thing that I'm thinking right now is, like, a real thing." So I literally, like, 2 seconds later, turn the corner, the sky opens up, and there's just a blob of rainbow up in the sky, in the blue sky. There's no clouds, there's no rain. It was just some random blob of a rainbow. It was a small little ball, it wasn't like a full rainbow or anything, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's probably just a coincidence." Like, how much more specific could I have gotten, and how much quicker after saying it could I have seen that? Um, but yeah, I'm becoming a convert in that, like, I still have my questions, and I don't wanna I guess I just don't like blindly believing in anything. I
Yeah,
like to
which is
always,
smart.
like, believe in the possibilities of things with also the possibility that this is all meaningless and arbitrary, and we're just here fucking around until we die. I guess that sounds pretty
I think,
dark, but
but I mean, in like exactly what you just said, in like I really just think that's critical thinking, like,
mhm,
not believing everything that you hear or the
yeah,
first thing that you hear. So,
right.
um, I also will recognize, like, depending on what's going on in my life, I'll see different, like repetitive numbers depending on what's going on. And recently I have been seeing, which I normally don't see 111 anywhere, but for like the past, so a few months ago I started seeing, I can't remember it now what the number combination was, but it wasn't the same number multiple times. It was different numbers in a specific
Mhm,
order, and I can't remember what it is. Anyways, I looked up the meaning in the angel number book, and it literally meant that like turbulent waters were on the horizon. Like it was like something not so fun's gonna happen. And I was just like, no. Yep, 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 yep.
Surprise.
And then that happened. And and then like it shifted a few weeks, month ago, I don't know, to 111. And Mystic Michaela's interpretation of 111, she calls it like the screenshot number.
Mhm.
So whatever you're thinking in your mind is being multiplied at a faster rate.
Mhm.
And so it's like it's an opportunity to like, what am I thinking about? What am I focusing on? Do I want to keep focusing on that, or should I shift my awareness? And I've been seeing 111 in the most obscure places. Like I'll be teaching a class and I'll look down at my song to see like how much longer I have left. And it's literally like 1 minute and
One
11
one one.
seconds. So it's like
Mhm.
that fast. Like I'll look at the microwave. Also, I will I will admit that when I put things in the microwave, which I don't do often, I know the microwave's bad, whatever. I always do it in angel numbers. So like I'll put the microwave for like 1 minute and 11 seconds or 33 seconds or 44 seconds, always, every single
You're
time.
manifesting your dreams by
Yeah.
doing that.
My passcode on my phone, and now you guys can all find my secrets if I ever leave this anywhere. It's 8888888, and 888888 is the like abundance number, specifically with money.
Is that your
Um,
bank PIN code too, just in case we ever
no,
need to know?
no, no, actually, that is not an angel number because it would be too. I mean, I wonder if I'll look it up eventually. Um, where else have I seen it? Like on the clock, like when I remember I was in a conversation with a member at the studio talking to her about something, and I literally looked up at the clock to like, I don't remember, like for a specific reason, I looked up at the clock and I was like, of course it's 111, or it was 11:11. It was earlier in the morning. But anyways, yeah, it's been showing up. I can't remember, but like crazy places like that where like it's a moment in time,
Mhm.
literally a second in time. And I just keep remembering being like, every time I see it, I'm like, a fucking course. All right, what am I thinking about? Do I want to,
Screenshot.
yeah, exactly. Do I want that to multiply faster, or do I want to shift my thinking? So in that sense, that's what I like Mystic Michaela's, is that it gives you sort of like um solution to it. It's not just like, oh, this means that you're gonna go through turbulent
Right,
waters. But it's like, what are you thinking about right now in terms of like where there's a challenge in your life? And like it gives you the opportunity to reflect, essentially, no matter what
right.
that reflection is.
Yeah.
Um, and the last thing that I'll say about angel numbers is when Matt proposed and we were looking at dates to get married, I was like, oh, 12222 is on a Saturday. Do you want to get married on that date? And he was like, I love 22s. And I was like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, my email is mitmatt22. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. You love 22s. So we got married on 12222, which essentially 22s mean like to trust that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And 122, I wish I had my book, but it's actually at the studio on our 300-hour altar. 122 is something along I can't remember it off the top of my head, which is embarrassing, but something along the lines of like you're on the right path. Like surrender to what you're doing. It's where you're supposed to be. And so I was like, that's perfect for a wedding. Let's fucking do it.
In case anyone was wondering why we air all the episodes on Friday at 2:22
Yeah.
PM, that is your answer.
Exactly. All right, cool. So anything else on angel numbers?
I mean, for the sake of us keeping it
Yeah,
chill, just so you guys know, Montana and I can't even have a quick phone call. Like, I'll call to tell her one thing, and we end up on the phone for like a fucking
half an
hour
hour.
every single time. So yeah, we can pack up the angel numbers for the sake of us
Store
being
it.
curt, and we'll move on to yoga flows. How long do
Yeah.
we teach them? What feels good? What doesn't? I'm at 2 weeks right now. I used to change them every week, and I started to feel like it was not pressure, like I like doing it, but also to change them that often. I felt like I could put more thought into them if I was able to teach them longer. And so now I'm at 2 weeks, and I feel like by the end of the 2 weeks, I have mastered like cueing the class, and I could see the difference in my students' bodies. Like the first week, as always, like some people, because we build at Yoga 6 2 most of the time to a peak posture. So most of the time, the students like, depending on the variations and the modifications, like everybody gets to a point that they're there. Um, but then like by the end of the second week, I just feel like everybody looks much more confident in the sequence. And so they're able to it's not like because it's not like getting the peak posture is the ultimate in what's in like the success of a class, but like you can tell the students know what's coming, so their movements are more confident. Like there's no hesitation, there's no like holding back or looking around, like they know exactly what they're supposed to do. And it's cool when the confidence is there, the flow of the whole room just feels different.
Hmm.
That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, that's so true. I have so many thoughts on it. As a teacher, I agree totally with what you said about like when you teach it one week, you learn a lot about what works and what doesn't work in terms of cueing and like the sequence itself, like what the order of an arrangement of the postures, like what felt good and what didn't, or where there was room for an adjustment essentially for it to feel better. And then, yeah, like I think, building to any whether it's a peak pose or the peak complexity of class, like by building to that intelligently, you do give students the confidence to not only like have their physical bodies trained and prepared for what's coming in terms of the most complex portion, but also by repeating the class, um, you give them the confidence to have a better idea of what's coming and then to like watch their progress build, which is why set
Yep.
sequences there's so many of them in the yoga world because it's an opportunity to track your progress. And then from there, you have like the groundwork to like watch yourself excel.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing with teaching the class 2 times in a row. Or 2 weeks in a row. I also um think that like it's never going to be like even though it might be a very similar sequence building to the same complexity, peak complexity, it's never going to be the same. Like that's
Hmm.
why we've done Warrior 2 1,000,000,000,000,000 times.
Yeah.
That's why crescent lunge, like we've talked about, is in every sequence because
Hmm.
it is like a staple.
Hmm.
Um, and it does the job. It gets the job done. Um, and then lastly, not lastly, but for like I said, like you said, for the sake of time, lastly, to like tie a bow on my thoughts here is like in the 300 hour, now you guys are focusing on building 4 completely different sequences that all build to the same peak pose or peak
Yep.
complexity of class. And so I think that's an even more beneficial way for your students to be more successful in these more challenging postures.
Hmm.
Because say you teach a similar sequence 2 weeks in a row, all building to
Wheel.
8 angle. I'm going to say 8 angle because that's what I did most recently. And then the next 2 weeks, excuse me, is a totally different sequence,
Mm.
building to the same pose. I just did 6 weeks. It was too long. At least for
Hmm.
me. At least for me, it was too long. But and I could be making this up because nobody said anything to me about it, but like I could sense from my better judgment that like by week 6, everyone's like, we're fucking done
We're
doing
done.
8 angle. Enough of this bullshit. But it was cool too because like the people that came all 6 weeks, and it's a 6 a.m. class that I teach. So 6 a.m. goers are, the most
Yeah.
consistent yogis I've ever been a part of or seen. So I watched a lot of them like grow and progress in their bodies. Now, did everyone get 8 angle pose? Absolutely not. I mean, I like I'm not always able to do 8 angle pose. There were probably like 5 people in a room of 30 that were, embodying it to quote unquote big, huge bunny ears, its full expression. But that's not the point. Like I watched everyone build in their own way in their own bodies to different variations of this pose. And it was cool.
Hmm.
But it's also really hard. And I think it was just 6 weeks was too much. I think 4 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks is the sweet spot, depending on like your why. Like if it's eight
Yeah.
angle pose and it's really hard, like maybe it's worth doing it 4 weeks. If your peak pose is eagle, like I think is what you said as the example, like eagle is
Wheel.
definitely, oh, wheel. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, wheel, I think, I don't know. Wheel, I don't know. I think it depends, but something like eagle where it's definitely complex, but it's not as crazy as like
Mhm.
wheel or eight angle or
Right.
something like that, like maybe that's a 2 weeker, right? Because you can
Yeah.
see more progress quicker in something that's less complex. And I also want to make sure everyone understands that, like, I understand that Eagle is very easy for Julia Mudrock and not very
Right.
easy for Dawn. So
Right.
it all depends.
Hmm.
Julia Mudrock was in our 200 hour and she made us laugh so hard because she was like, Eagle's the easiest pose. And we were like, what? And she like got in it and she was like fucking in it. And her bottom, her supporting
She
knee
looked
was
like
like
one of those
bent.
cartoons that, like, their legs wrap around each other and their
Yeah.
arms wrap around each other, and they're just like a slinky, like, bouncing up and down.
Yeah. She was like, I
It
don't
looked like
get it.
she could've yeah, she could've been in eagle pose for an hour and not even blinked. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
We were talking about that too in the 300 hour, just the idea of, like, according to the textbook that we're going through, they had said that revolved half moon was more complex than revolved big toe. Or was it the other way around? Yeah, they said revolved half moon was more complex than revolved big toe. And I had mentioned that, like, in my body, revolved half moon feels easy peasy. And revolved big toe is a lot harder for me to extend my leg, forward and twist at the same time while maintaining my balance. And then it kind of like took us down a rabbit hole of a good reminder that, like, a pose that might feel not as complex to you, like as the teacher, as the student, or if you're building to Eagle, because for you, Eagle feels really complex and challenging. Um, there's always going to be Julia Mudrock back there who's just like in it in a heartbeat and she didn't even need to warm up. She doesn't think twice about it. So it's just always good to like, actually, I just sent this quote to a yoga friend who always does the most and I think doesn't realize um, that doing the most in as a practitioner makes it challenging to be a teacher because you kind of forget that, like, the way you practice is different, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
a lot of people don't practice the way you practice. But the quote says, people who find it easy to do things have no idea how hard it is to do things. And now that could be across the board for any possible thing that you could think of, but in my mind I thought of yoga, which is that people who find it easy to do something have no idea how hard it might be for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's not because they're ignorant or rude, but obviously we all try to teach as informed as we can and like as inclusive as we can. But when you find something personally easy in your body, it's really hard to remember that someone
Mhm.
else might find it really, really fucking hard.
That is a
So
great, simple, to the point, mic drop
yeah,
quote.
well, I literally read it and I was like, this applies to everything, but also
Everything.
to mostly to yoga because my brain is always there. So yeah,
Yeah.
people who find it easy to do things have no idea how hard it is to do things. Full stop.
Another thing that I want to say in terms of like peak poses is that, like, just because you're building to a peak pose doesn't mean that that's the only complex pose in your sequence. So
Exactly.
like how can you, just going back to like the twist, the revolved half moon versus like dancing Shiva big toe revolved big toe pose.
Right.
Um it's like it doesn't matter which one you call as the teacher your peak pose. Those are both complex. So it's like
Yeah.
you got to build to those, to every complex posture, as best as you can
Hmm.
from the beginning of your class all the way until when you get to that pose. It's like you're giving, options from simple to complex.
Totally.
Um, cool. All right. Well, we're going to keep this short and sweet. Look, if we go
We did
any
it.
longer, it's going to be an hour.
I know. We got to stop. We're
Yeah.
done. We're done here.
But yeah, this was fun. And yeah, we've got 2 more months. This is the end of August. We have 2 more months of May and i.e.,
Bullshitting.
4 more episodes, I think, of our summer vacation. And then we will be back with guests. And we are starting to accumulate a list
Hmm.
and we're really excited about it. So if anyone has any requests, reach out, let us know, and we'd be happy to see who we can get on this show for season dose. All right.
Shoulder wiggle, shoulder wiggle.
Oh, teach me how to shimmy, shimmy. Yeah, now I don't know how to not sing on the podcast. Okay, bye everyone. Have a good
Bye.
weekend.